A very good morning to all of you. It is a great opportunity to be standing among distinguished delegates from various sectors and welcoming them to the 7th Annual Corporate Summit on Building Competitiveness through Digital Culture pertaining to BFSI, FMCG, IT, ITES. I, Sanandi Sachdeva, on behalf of Jaipuria Institute of Management, welcome you all. I extend gratitude to Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, co-founder and vice chairman InfoEdge, the chief guest of the day. Mr. Rajendra Singh Pawar, chairman co-founder NIIT Group, the keynote speaker for the day, for being with us in the 7th Annual Corporate Summit 2022. Paying a tribute to Almighty, let us join our hands for the lamp lighting ceremony.
शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
We at Seth Anandram Jaipuria Education Society have a legacy spanning over 75 years in the field of education. We have established schools and colleges across several cities in several states. Founded in the year 2001, Jaipuria Institute of Management is a leading business school in Delhi NCR with NAC Grade A accreditation. Each year, the institute organizes a corporate summit on the topic of relevance, benefiting the industry as well as academia. This year, the institute is holding a corporate summit on building competitiveness through digital culture in BFSI, FMCG, and IT/ITES. Beginning the program, I take the opportunity to welcome the director of the institute, Dr. Devender Narang, for the welcome address. Professor Narang has an extensive experience of more than 25 years in the field of academia and management in best business and management institutes of India and abroad. A blend of fine academic and a seasoned administrator, he is known as an institution builder, an acclaimed teacher, a prolific speaker, an avid researcher, a consultant, and a trainer. Over to you, sir.
Good morning and namaskar. I am extremely delighted to extend my hearty welcome to the annual corporate summit being organized by Jaipuria Institute of Management. I have special pleasure in welcoming Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, founder and executive vice chairman of InfoEdge, as the chief guest of the event. The keynote speaker, Mr. Rajendra Singh Pawar, founder and chairman of NIIT Technologies, the chairman of Jaipuria Group of Education Institutes, Shri Shishir Jaipuria, and Mr. Vinod Malhotra, advisor, Jaipuria Group of Educational Institutes. It's a matter of a great pride that this summit is being attended by several experts from different fields who have rich experience in bringing digital culture to their respective organization. And I extend a very warm welcome to them and hope for very productive sessions. Last 2 years have been extremely disruptive on account of the continuous and the extended phase of the pandemic, and because of this, the business environment was adversely impacted. However, it also gave a strong impulse to the faster adoption of the digital culture and those corporate entities that implemented technology ahead of others and flourishing. Today, the question is not whether technology or the digital applications are required. The question is which one to choose from a wide variety of the options and development that happening in this space. 21st century woke up with realization that technology has become an integral part of our existence, but the pace at which it has developed has surprised everyone, including those who were responsible for many new initiatives in this regard. We are now experiencing a new paradigm in the digital culture which prescribe unique applications that are being customized to meet the specific requirement of that particular sector. It has brought a culture of specialization in the digital mode, which has further augmented the speed and agility in the achievement of corporate goals. In this time of rapid technological change, we don't just need people who can program our computers, we also need people who understand the impact of technology. Digital culture trains professionals who can use technology creatively and can analyze the effect of technological changes on the society as well as the humanity. The business environment is changing at a much faster pace than ever before in the history of mankind. Concurrently, the challenges that the business the world over will have to face will also become bigger. The need, therefore, would not merely be of being able to solve them, but find solution with great agility. Digital culture will be required to build competitiveness, but paradoxically, it shall have to adopt a collaborative approach. Digital culture shall have to incorporate values, humanistic concern, and only then it will become sustainable. Environmental sensitivity will also be factored in while taking the decisions. Well, academia can also play an important role in constructing a roadmap for building robust digital culture, and I think the corporate and academia institute like ours can collaborate on a common platform. The corporate summit is yet another endeavor to link innovation with robust education that foster connections. We at Jaipuria are committed to unleash the next generation of entrepreneurs and employees by continuing to leverage our global strength and capability. I sincerely hope that this summit will help to enlighten the participant, speaker, panelists on a subject that is posed to play a significant role in the lives of all of us. The presence of the stalwart like our chief guest and the keynote speaker holds promise of important takeaway. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you so much for the address, sir. May I now request Sri Shishir Jaipuria, Chairman, Seth Anandram Jaipuria Education Society, for the address. Mr. Shishir Jaipuria is the chairman of Seth Anandram Jaipuria Education Society, which is a chain of preschools, K-12 schools, management institutes, and teachers training academy. Mr. Jaipuria is also the co-chair at FICCI Arise, the vertical of FICCI which takes care of the interest of independent schools. Over to you, sir.
Good morning and namaskar. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all the corporate leaders, academicians, and students to the 7th Corporate Summit on Building Competitiveness through Digital Culture, organized by the Jaipuria Institute of Management. I am particularly grateful to Sri Sanjeev Biskanjani, co-founder and vice chairman, InfoEdge, and Sri Rajendra Pawar, chairman and co-founder, NNIT Group, for being with us today morning to share their views on this contemporary and topical subject. Sanjeev ji is a serial entrepreneur and is known as a man with a Midas touch, having promoted and incubated large number of startups. Rajendra ji is a visionary leader who realized the potential of the IT industry and championed the cause of human resources and its development. Both of our eminent guests are well known for their vision and outlook of the digital ecosystem and are familiar with the rapid changes that are required by companies to transform themselves in the new digital era. We look forward to an engaging session which will clearly articulate the digital architecture companies should build and the culture they should create to sustain and grow in these volatile times. Friends, today we are all living in a world which is passing through an inflection point. Exponential growth in technology, concerns about climate change, and rapidly changing geopolitical equations are three major factors which are impacting businesses globally. The advent of COVID-19 has further accelerated the process and has led us to reimagine how we live, work, engage, collaborate with each other. The adoption of digital technology in every facet of our business is becoming imperative for it to succeed. Prior to the spread of the pandemic, we had witnessed the Great Recession of 2007-2009 and subsequent sovereign debt crisis, which had led to the growth of a large number of technological companies globally. The launch of the iPhone in 2007 was a turning point in the history of technology, and the penetration of mobile and internet has made the world interconnected. New and innovative products are being introduced by digital companies and they are expanding their services at a rapid pace. We saw emergence of social media, clean power revolution, digital currency, genome sequencing, presence of a large number of platform and technological companies using AI, algorithms, and augmented intelligence at their foundation. These rapid advancements in digital technology have impacted each and every industry. Organizations and their leaders have to reflect upon the ways they are conducting their business and review its products, processes, business models, and customer experience to stay competitive. The speed at which they change are to be made in a digital era require cultural transformation. Today, product cycles have shrunk, competition has become intense, and Generation Z is looking for products and services which are cheaper, better, and convenient to buy and consume without compromising on the quality. Legacy companies have to be proactive and agile while competing with digital natives. Today, competition can come from anywhere. A new mindset and a new approach are required to build a digital culture wherein one has to balance short-term interest and long-term goals of the company. The culture of innovation and creativity can be effective in empowering the employees and ensuring that technology permeates to the very foundation of the organization. It has to be a part of the organization's DNA. The leaders have to communicate their intent constantly to the team for becoming change agents. Hence, the digital age requires company to shape their vision, have a robust governance framework, and constantly engage with all the stakeholders. We have seen how the education sector had been disrupted globally on account of lockdown imposed in 192 countries 2 years back. Overnight, physical classes had to move on to online mode, and teachers had to seamlessly adapt to the new digital technologies. Various apps, tools, and devices for content, delivery, assessment, and student engagement were used to enhance learning outcomes. The edtech sector also came out with innovative solutions and flourished as they provided high quality content and skill based programs for students who were confined to their homes. The digital transformation in the sector brought about a significant change which has prepared the industry for the future. It has assured that the industry can provide equitable and sustainable solutions to every child. Likewise, tremendous changes have also taken place in the banking, financial services, and insurance landscape on account of government's thrust on digital adoption. The Jan Dhan Yojana, Aadhaar and mobile integration has enhanced the digital inclusion and enabled the transfer of benefits digitally by the government, thereby reducing leakages in the system. The convergence of governmental push, ability to adopt digital tools, and wide and open-minded approach towards technology will help the country becoming a $5 trillion economy in the next 3 or 4 years. The United Payment Interface now comprises 60% of the total payments by volume, with digital payments touching $300 billion in the year 2021, a growth of 20 times in the last 5 years. According to a CLSA report, it is expected to reach $1 trillion by the year 2026. The digital operating model being used by BFSI industry, along with intensive use of data and algorithms, have helped in reducing cost, improving efficiency, transparency, and good governance. Alipay, a financial arm of Alibaba, is serving over 700 million customers with only 10,000 people at the back end, relying on AI-enabled transactions. It can process billions of transactions every day through its digital infrastructure and has disrupted the traditional banking sector. The speed at which this processes loan and gives approvals is unmatched. Today, a large number of digital companies have entered the space, making massive inroads in the sector. The insurance sector is also seeing a huge transformation with the power of data and analytics, which is helping them to improve operations and launch new business models. The retail industry is also undergoing a paradigm shift with the growth of e-commerce companies that are aggregating products from large number of vendors. The customers today want simplicity, that is one-click shopping. They want 24-hour access and quick delivery, clear and relevant information about the product features in relation to pricing, innovative and environmental friendly products, and personalized services. The digital acceleration, supply chain resilience, health and safety concerns, and seamless transactions have improved customers' experience. Today, customers in remote areas can buy products through digital modes from the comfort of their homes. The trend is likely to continue as customers are able to perceive value and convenience. The IT industry and IT-enabled service sector is also on an overdrive, riding on exponential growth of the new technologies, namely artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, augmented reality, cloud computing, Internet of Things, blockchain, etc. All of them are helping to reshape the growth for companies across sectors by providing innovative solutions for them to adopt. In the year 2021, it is estimated that the export revenue from the IT sector was $150 billion, while the IT spending in India, as per Gartner's report, was $98 billion. The government of India's launched the flagship Startup India initiative in 2015, which was instrumental in building a startup ecosystem in the country. In the last 1 year, Indian startups have received an investment of $100 billion, and there are presently 82 Indian unicorns, the number of which is growing phenomenally. The focus now has to be on research so that we can improve our ranking in the Digital Innovation Index, which is currently at 46. Before I conclude, I would like to highlight some of the challenges associated with digitalization, such as data protection, digital security, privacy risks, and cybercrime that require regulation and global cooperation. While these concerns will have to be addressed, I would like to emphasize that the digital culture is paramount for remaining competitive. According to the World Economic Forum report published in 2021, just 10% of the companies realize the value of investment undertaken in technology. Staying competitive in the present time is a challenge, and thus one must adopt digital culture to the rapidly changing business environment to deliver a sustainable stakeholders' impact. I hope more and more companies will adopt this mantra. I am sure today's summit will comprehensively deal with relevant issues and concerns and sensitize leaders and corporates as they navigate their digital journey towards growth and excellence. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the address, sir. We are extremely delighted to have with us Mr. Rajendra Singh Pawar, Chairman and Co-founder, NIIT Group. Mr. Rajendra Singh Pawar is the Chairman of NIIT Technologies. Mr. Pawar is also a member of National Task Force on Information Technology and Software Development. He heads the Quality Committee of various industry bodies, including the South African President's International Advisory Council on Information Society. He is also the recipient of Padma Bhushan 2011. Before I ask Mr. Pawar to deliver the keynote address, we would like to honor him with a certificate wherein we pledge to sponsor the education of 5 underprivileged children for an year through Smile Foundation under the name of Mr. Rajendra Singh Pawar. Over to you for the address, sir.
Thank you very much. And first of all, Shishirji, thanks for this opportunity. Your institution has a very spiritual heritage, very strong spiritual roots. So for me, it's a special opportunity, and I'm grateful to you for that opportunity. So I want to stay with my time, which closes at 10:35. So I'm going to express a few ideas because we have 24 very good speakers who are talking about various sectors. And we have a brilliant entrepreneur, Sanjeev, whom we have seen build a series of great ideas in the digital world. And while these 24 speakers will talk to you about various sectors, and Sanjeev will take you through how to build digital enterprises, I want to touch on 2 basic concepts. And that they are in the title. So the first is we are talking about building competitiveness, and the second is about digital culture. And Shishirji has given a very good description of digital, the digital world. So I'll touch on digital culture. Now, as we know, culture basically, the word means the way we live, the way of living, how we live our lives, how we communicate, how we do everything in life. And when we put the word digital in front, we are basically saying that with the coming of computers and communication, what has changed in the way we live? So I don't need to spend time because the COVID, in my view, has been the biggest teacher we've had in the last 100 years. It has taught us 2 years, in 2 years, about digital transformation, what we as an industry have been trying to do world over for the last 30 years. In 2 years, we have all learned. And so therefore, digital culture is, with computers and communication, how do we change the way we live? So each of you has experienced some things in the last 2 years. All the students have experienced how we study in the digital world with all its difficulties, but we learned a lot. All of us who are working professionals have learned how to work from home. Each one of us has learned how to buy things digitally, whether it's Amazon for many things or it's Zomato for food. Each of us has learned how to send and receive money through the likes of Paytm. Each of us has learned how to travel, how to make travel friction-free with an Uber, much like we've learned how to do a booking for stay if we go somewhere on Oyo. And of course, most importantly, every household has learned about telemedicine, how to interact with a doctor, which earlier used to be such a hassle. Take an appointment, drive there, go into the reception, wait, pay the money. Now it happens with a click of a button. So we've experienced that because that was a life and death question. And of course, we've all learned how to entertain ourselves with Netflix. So all of these experiences, basically, if you can see, there are a couple of fundamental changes which are making this happen, which constitute then the digital culture. First of all, the organizational structures, which were typically hierarchical, developed over centuries, collapsed into network structures, into broad structures. So it wasn't a command and control structure. Whether it's at home or at work or in the nation, it has all come down into a networked structure. Second is, from control, we have had to move into empowerment. There's been no choice. So this transition from control-oriented management to empowerment-oriented management has happened. We've learned that it's happened. Third is, the rigid way of doing things have yielded to agility and to speed. We have to do things at the speed of light. And finally, the fourth dimension is that, as against very rigorous long-term planning processes, we now have to use experimentation as the way to work. So these are the four significant changes, which is from vertical to network, from control to empowerment, from rigid order to agility and being flexible, and from planning to experimentation. And these four, I can see that there are three attributes that each of you as young people, and I mean it for the students, and of course for all of us, three basic attributes: that connectedness, how we are connected with each other, with our work, with data, with everything, how we are connected, and how rapidly we can do things. So connectedness and agility is one important dimension, therefore, of the digital culture. The second is freedom and innovation. If you want innovation, you have to have freedom. COVID didn't give us a choice. Everybody had to do everything. So therefore, freedom and innovation is the second dimension. And third, and perhaps the very distinct difference from the industrial era as we come into the knowledge era, is we move with the machine being at the center to the human mind being at the center. And I therefore think the 21st century is the century of the mind, because instead of using energy and oil as what drove the economies, now we are dealing with data as the new oil, as we say. So, and there's an abundance of data. Each one of us is contributing. How many pictures did you take yesterday? How many photographs did you take? How many megapixels, how many megabits of information did you create yesterday and put into the world for the world to see? So data is in abundance. And therefore, the digital culture implies that we are all connected, we have to be connected, and therefore we have to be agile. It demands that we create empowerment and seek freedom, and therefore create innovation. And finally, that we become really experienced and adept at using data, which is the main resource. So that's about the digital culture. That's my simple way to define it. And now a few minutes on building competitiveness. And here I have a very strong message to give to each one of you. So first is, yes, we are concerned about building competitiveness through digital culture. And you will hear the 24 speakers talk about competitiveness in their sector. And much like you'll hear Sanjeev saying, competitiveness in how you build a business and a business model. So the question is, whose competitiveness are we talking of? Are we talking of competitiveness between India, America, and China at the country level? Are we talking of within a country of competition between IT sector, pharma sector, and so on for attention, talent? Within the IT sector, are we looking for company A versus B versus C competing with each other for the market? And then within the company, there are departments. They're also all competing for resources and for management time. And within each department, there's people, and you are going to be one of those people. So we are talking about your competitiveness. And a philosophical point I want to make here is, we have been taught to compete right from school days, and we are competing against someone all the time, someone else. This is destructive in my view. And this is also very painful. So let me explain. Let's say if you're in the bottom of the class, there's someone right up there who's the best. So you get peer pressure, parents and everyone said, do better. Look at your reference. So you, from rank number 20, let's say you go to rank number 15. Huge excitement, huge energy, because you're getting better. You go to number 20, it's even more exciting because you see progress. You're trying new things, you're experimenting, you're working hard. Now you come to the top 3. Your attitude starts changing. Now you want to hold on to number 3 and maybe go to number 2. And you then start looking back over your shoulder on who's behind. And then you come to number 2. And then you come to number 1, and then you are paranoid. Because now you have everything to lose. There's nobody in front, you're looking back. And no one succeeded in life by looking back. So the message I want to leave on competitiveness is, the person you have to compete with is yourself. Not the person who was ahead of you or behind you. And if you make it a habit that you will be better tomorrow than you are today, then you are competing with yourself to be better and better and better. And this does not have any looking back. This is all about looking into the future. And this is all about small continuous improvement. The Japanese have a nice word called Kaizen, small continuous improvements. And if you've seen any great professional, they will say, if it's golf, they say you have to hit 3,000 balls a day for God knows how many years before you become very good. You're hitting the ball yourself. You're not necessarily saying, how did so-and-so do it? How did so-and-so do it? So if there's one message that I want to leave on competitiveness at the individual level, remember that the competition is with yourself. Make that a discipline. End of every day, in the evening, sit down and reflect on the day. What did you do well? What did you not do well? This you're doing with yourself. No one's watching. No one's criticizing you. What did you not do well? And which of those things are you going to do better tomorrow? One little step every day. And that's really the competitiveness that I want to leave with all of you young students. So with that, Shishirji, my time is up. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm very grateful to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the address. Today, we have among us Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, co-founder and vice chairman, InfoEdge. Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, the founder and executive vice chairman of InfoEdge, India's premier online classifieds company in recruitment, Naukri.com, matrimony, Jeevansati.com, real estate, 99acres.com, and education, Shiksha.com. He is also the co-founder of Ashoka University. Mr. Bikhchandani is the recipient of Padma Shri in January 2020. Before I ask Mr. Bikhchandani to deliver the address, we would like to honor him with a certificate wherein we pledge to sponsor the education of 5 underprivileged children for an year through Smile Foundation. under the name of Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani. Over to you, sir, for the address.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me here. I met Shishirji for the first time a few months ago with a friend, and we have a common connection which goes back to the 80s and 90s, where we both were in the same organization, although at different times. His family were the proprietors of the Pioneer newspaper, and they sold it. And then a few years later, I joined that paper part-time to work there as a consulting editor. And we found that connection, and we were quite nostalgic about the 80s and 90s, I remember. So thank you, sir, for inviting me here. And we will talk about the Pioneer another day, right? But, picking up from where Mr. Pawar, he mentioned that, listen, we have learned in 2 years what we have tried to do for 30 years before that. But ये 2 साल में जो acceleration आई है, it is unprecedented. That is totally true. I'll give you our own experience. So I'm slightly paranoid myself, right? And Mr. Pawar touched upon paranoia, but and Andy Grove has said in the past only the paranoid survive. So I'm slightly paranoid. I'm also risk averse. लोग कहते हैं कि entrepreneurs are risk takers. I don't agree. I believe entrepreneurs are risk averse. They just have different goals. So perhaps they take more risks than others, but because they're compelled to, but they are risk averse. So when the first videos of COVID came out and went around WhatsApp groups on Wuhan and what was happening there, maybe they were fake, maybe they were real, I do not know. But that's when my antennae went up. And I said, this is something that can spread globally. This is around December 1919 or Jan 2020. So we took one person out of our CSR team and said, "Bhai, aap isko daily monitor karo, this disease ko, see where it's going, and submit a daily report." And we began to track COVID as early as Jan 2020. Per chance, one day we got a call from our head of UI UX design and said, listen, there was this flight that came in from Milan, Air India, in which there was a passenger who was infected, and he has been identified. And my wife was cabin crew on that flight. So she has been asked to stay at home for 2 weeks. And since, I'm there in the house, I think I also should work from home for 2 weeks. And this is maybe around beginning of Feb, right? And that's when we realized, hey, it's coming home. It's coming close now. And so we began to prepare and plan for work from home, working remote. We said, agar ye phail jaye, to humko shayad ghar se kaam karna padega. And fortunately, we acted then. And we were able to transition to work from home 2 weeks before the government announced lockdown in March 2020. So we had anticipated, we were ready for it. And our IT infrastructure team, our tech guys, our tech support guys, they did a phenomenal job on getting everybody to work from home from the first week of March 2020, 2 weeks before government announced lockdown. We did not know government would announce lockdown. We just said, humko karna padega. And we did that. If you'd asked me 2 years earlier, do you think you can work from home? And because we keep getting requests from employees, why can't I work from home 2 days a week? और हम मना करते थे, क्योंकि हमारा कल्चर यही था. I'm very old school. I'm 58. I'm very old school. I started working in 1984. And उस जमाने में कंप्यूटर नहीं थे ऑफिस में. So I said no. I am a great believer in face-to-face meetings, in management by walking about. Company का culture नहीं बनता है if you work from home. You've got to collaborate. Collaboration best done face-to-face. You've got to be able to walk into somebody's cabin and have a coffee, right? You've got to slap somebody in the back. So without that human touch, you can't really run a company. And so हम मना करते थे. But here now we were compelled to do it. So we did it. And I myself was always say no to video meetings earlier with investors. I would tell the CFO, "Aap kar do yaar," and I would be, had to be persuaded to attend a video meeting. I'm a face-to-face guy, right? But यहाँ पे करना पड़ा. Now a few things happened, and we're talking about culture here. So पहले तो, how do you supervise a team, your team, when they're all working from home? So this old thing of, hey, I'll come and see what you're doing. I'll review every 2 hours. Kiya nahi kiya. No, that whole thing had to change, because you can't do it. You've got to trust the guy. So the good team manager who was good earlier on a certain style of management, had to adapt and evolve and empower his team and trust them much more than he was doing earlier, immediately. No time for transition. एक तो ये कल्चरल शिफ्ट हुआ. दूसरा ये हुआ कि our Naukri sales team used to make 2 or 3 sales calls a day. Noida se Gurgaon jao, commuting time, wait in the reception, wait in the conference room, client comes, pehle chai, coffee piyo, 20 minute gupshup karo, then you come to the point. So you could do maximum 2 or 3 meetings a day. Now you couldn't go out. So you did video sales calls. What it meant was the sales team productivity in terms of number of meetings went up from 2 to 3 a day to 11, 12 a day. It also meant that all senior managers could attend a sales meeting anywhere in the country. Now, initially in lockdown, of course, business was down, but afterwards, this productivity boost has been tremendous. And the Naukri numbers in recent quarters have gone up tremendously. So this is an opportunity for us. So what was adversity? Through technology, we were able to convert the opportunity. Also, cultural shift hua hai. Right? But, there are some challenges. So we fortunately are profitable enough that we did not have to let go of anybody. And we did not have to back out of any hiring commitments we made to students on campuses. So we recruited a few hundred engineers last year, 2020, even when most companies were saying we don't need them. अब आपने 100-200 लोगों को hire किया है, they are freshers. How do you onboard them? How do you train them? How does his immediate supervisor figure out that he's productively employed, he's doing the right thing when you cannot meet? Right? That was a big challenge, and it remains a big challenge. 5 years from now, this is not going to be sustainable because you can't say 5 years from now, hey, what's your company culture like? I don't know. I have not met anybody in the company for the last 5 years. That doesn't work. Right? So ultimately, when COVID is behind us, and hopefully it will be, I think you'll go back to a significant amount of working from office, a significant number of face-to-face meetings, while at the same time, allowing some people to work from home some days a week. So thoda culture shift hua hai, or ye I think is a good change because it has led to productivity increases. Right? Now, but if I look back on, and say, how was all this possible? I think the underlying forces, as Mr. Pawar has said, were there already over the last 30 years. First of all, we are able to digitize because we have the manpower who's capable of digitizing. And this manpower is there because we have a few thousand engineering colleges which have come up since the 80s. And we have organizations like NIT and Aptech, which built a computer programming culture in the country by training millions of people. I do not know, Mr. Pawar, over the last 40 years, how many people would NIT have trained, sir?
38 million.
28 million, 3 crore.
38
million, 4 crore. 4 crore means 1 in 25 Indians have been to NIT. If you add Aptech, तो शायद 3-4 million और हो जाएंगे, 3-4 crore और हो जाएंगे. If you add all the other smaller computer training organizations, so maybe 1 in 7-8 Indians has received computer training from outside the university system. And then you add the university system, the engineering colleges, and it's a very, very large number. It's on the back of this manpower that we're able to digitize. So ये 40 साल से process चल रहा है. Right? Then the other thing that's happened is while large companies are digitizing, right, and are pivoting and are diversifying, I think the startup movement in India has really taken off over the last 10, 15, 20 years. It is these startups that are doing a lot of innovation, a lot of digitizing. We invest in startups. So we meet about 1,000 startups a quarter to look at who to invest in. So we have a reasonable idea of what's going on out there. And those startups here, they are driving a lot of change. A lot of change. And just remember, जो Infosys or Wipro, or HCL or TCS, they were startups 40 years ago. They're giant companies today. If you look at the market caps of the top 10 companies in India, 10 largest, almost all are companies that did not exist 50 years ago, or businesses and industries that did not exist 50 years ago, down from Reliance. TCS, these industries and companies did not exist 50 years ago. And they were startups in a sense. Although some were diversifications of large companies, but a lot of others were startups, first generation entrepreneurs. Right? So it is startups that are driving this change. It is startups that will help digitize. And we are seeing it in sector after sector. FinTech, health tech, B2B SaaS, B2C, e-governance, clean tech, biosciences, edtech, startups in many places. Right? So if I look at what's, why this is happening, it's happening because this was the enabling framework. This was there are enough startups, there are enough companies diversifying. There is COVID, there is, the talent to do it. But above all, I want to comment on government policy. I think the government policy has been quite enabling. So if you look at what's happened in FinTech, right? You look at the UPI. Without UPI, FinTech would not have taken off in this country. And that's a result of government policy. We are hoping to see the same thing in health tech, with the health tech stack coming up. Right? You look at Startup India, the government policy is there to encourage startups. I think that is really making a difference. You look at the fund of funds by the government, right, which invests in other to create the Indian venture capital industry that funds startups. Right? These are all government initiatives. So very often we criticize the government. I think in this area of digitalization, of technology, of startups, the government is doing a pretty good job. And I would like to commend the government on this. Right? So if you look at the convergence that's happening, where IT and AI and ML are meeting healthcare, health tech, biosciences, pharmaceuticals, pharma R&D. I think that is going to be doing what the IT industry, the IT services industry has done over the last, 40 or 50 years. अगले 20-30 साल में ये industry जो उभर के आ रही है, that will be huge, right? And it is, and I'll tell you one more thing before I move on to my last topic. I would like to point out that it was the IT services industry that gave India the talent pool. When engineering colleges created engineers, it was the work experience that these engineers got in the IT services companies that gave India the talent pool to create all these technology and startups that we are now seeing emerge today. Right? Without that, the startup industry, the internet industry would not be where it is today. So these are the building blocks. But I'll come to my last topic before I end. And that has already been touched upon by Mr. Pawar. What should students do to be competitive in the employment or job market? If you're looking for a job after graduating from college, if you're looking to do higher studies, it's different. अगर आपको straight away MBA करना है, masters करना है, PhD करना है, वो अलग बात है. But if you're looking for a job to get some work experience immediately afterwards, you see, we are producing a very large number of graduates and postgraduates who have very general skills, right? And the truth is, when you specialize, even when you specialize in college in some area, unless you have work experience in that area, you don't really have an employable skill as much, right, as you'd like to. Therefore, I would say acquire a narrow vertical skill, which is valued in the market, right? And try and get experience in organizations in that area while you're still studying, whether it's summer training, some apprenticeship, some weekend, some work from home, because आजकल work from home चल रहा है. And identify that narrow vertical skill. And that narrow vertical skill should be such that it should be a new age skill. It should be something that your employer, who's probably over 40, does not have and therefore needs in the organization. Right? That will be a USP. कि मैं वो कर सकता हूं सर जो आपको चाहिए लेकिन आप नहीं कर सकते, right? Whether it is social media marketing, whether it is digital marketing, whether it is some facility with numbers and spreadsheets and some data analysis and analytics. So what, identify that skill and go out and acquire it and get some work experience in that area while you're studying. Work from home, weekends, in holidays, summer training, in that area. And if you do a good job in any company and you do something useful, chances are that company will make a job for itself. So you will not put pressure on the placement system of the college. आपको खुद नौकरी मिल जाएगी. And even if you have to go through placement system, you'll be very employable. So focus on acquiring a narrow vertical skill, building a specific talent in a particular area, and then finding a market for it. I'll end here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the address, sir. I now request Shri Vinod Malhotra, Advisor, Jaipuria Group of Educational Institutions, for the vote of thanks. Mr. Vinod Malhotra is retired from the Indian Administrative Services after an illustrious career spanning over 39 years. He has written books in Hindi and English on the subjects that have strong relationship with the practice and philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sanandi. I called upon to express vote of thanks, and I think, to my mind, this word vote of thanks seems to be a bit of a misnomer. In an election of this country, we talk about votes, but I think Hindi provides a better example for giving out, which is Dhanyavad Prasthab. So, मैं राजेंद्र जी का, संजीव जी का, दोनों का हृदय से धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ कि you adorn this fantastic event and your insights in your delivery in terms of futuristic picture, complete landscape of the past and the present and the future, I think is extremely enlightening. And to all participants, it's obviously should be a very important takeaway. I want to be a bit of a, while I'm sort of expressing my, I want to be a bit of a devil's advocate. You see, the two very interesting phrases that appear in this topic today is one is competitiveness and another is a culture, the two C's. I think they are a bit of an oxymoron because when you talk about culture, you conjure up a vision of collaboration, not competitiveness. Because I think culture creates cohesiveness. Culture brings people together. Culture is specific to an individual, to an organization, to society. And I think when we talk about creating competitiveness in a culture, we need to bring in that element of collaboration. I think this is a very important element of not merely in any endeavor, but much more so in the digital context. I think at the end of it all, while everyone is waxing eloquent about the great advantages that digital world is bringing to us, and of course, undoubtedly it has brought about a complete revolution in the way we live, the way we think, the way we interact with each other, the way we connect with each other. But it seems to me that the most important aspect of any kind of endeavor, if you look at the historical evolution of society, any endeavor, be it in the science field, humanities, the focus has to be the human being. The concept of the old Vedanta philosophy of Aham Brahmasmi. We are at the center, we are the nucleus. Anything that you do really must contribute towards improvement of human life. And digitalization is no exception to it. And I think in our overemphasis, over enthusiasms to bring in digital culture, we cannot possibly lose sight of that important component of our existence. And I think whether it was about 200 years ago, 2000 years ago, or whether it's going to be 2000 years ahead of us, the humanity, the humankind. So I think digital culture should have to bring in very strong humanistic approach to it. And here I would strongly commend, rather than competitiveness, I would strongly commend integration of the concept of design thinking with digital culture, the two Ds. The design thinking really starts with a bit of an empathy. And I think I take my suggestion from Mr. Sanjeev and Mr. Pawar both, that in times to come, we shall be called upon to solve problems. Digital culture may solve problems, but it also might create several other challenges along the way. So I think the important thing would be to be able to be fully equipped with that kind of technology or that kind of understanding, to be able to empathize, to be able to understand, ideate, and then use digital concept, whether it's a augmented reality or AI or whatever, to solve problems in an agile mode. I think that's going to be the most important challenge. And I will fully approve or fully endorse what Rajendraji mentioned about the competitive aspect of it. I think the most important part is that you need to compete with yourself. And the great example of the golf as a game, I think this is probably the only game of its kind in the world where you compete against yourself. Even after hitting about 3,000 balls, you still need to compete against yourself. And interestingly, I'm very happy to share with you, I've been playing golf for a very long time. Shishir recently joined, and I'm sure he will understand the very immersive manner, the advantages of encouraging people to compete with themselves. And I think that is probably going to be the key to whatever progress, whatever digitization that I only am little worried about that human being not being degenerated into a digital identity. You see, on a lighter side, today our identity is known by the mobile number. And thanks to the portability aspect of it, we carry our numbers and that probably gives us the identity. So we can't possibly be a digital identity. I think that's something that we need to be very careful about. And the times are very interesting. I think very, very upbeat about the future of our nation with our strong demographic advantages and strong knowledge-related kind of economy that we are all ushering into. I think this digital culture that we will be creating based upon a strong sense of community and cohesive building will, I think, take our country to a much greater heights. I'm absolutely sure about it. At the end, sincere thanks to all the participants, and notably Mr. Sanjeev and Mr. Rajendra Pawar. I mean, they are, of course, they don't need, they're celebrities in their own right, and the kind of contribution they made to the overall success and the development countries cannot be overemphasized. Thank you very much for being here, and with your presence, I think our, the entire concept and the entire level of this particular conference has been considerably improved and heightened. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Ji. Thank
Ladies
you very
and
much.
gentlemen, the inaugural function is over.